Howdy, everyone. Christian Yetke here with Traditional Masculinity and the Ways of the Bible, Not Man. I'm a little sick this week, but I'm not going to let that stop me. So sorry if there's any coughing and whatnot today. But anyways, I wanted to go over this new part, this part, part two, the idea of some stuff that I came across. Again, this is by no means everything. This ain't even that much when it comes to the grand scheme of the amount of information that's out there. But this is just some psychology, some stats and some theories that I came across over the past couple of years of researching and working on this kind of information, and I wanted to bring it to you guys and just give you a little bit of some of the stuff that I've come across and how I perceived it and how it was able to help me. So again, I can, preface this with the fact that I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a clinician, I'm not a psychotherapist, I'm not a counselor, I'm not legalized any kind of anything. I have no letters or numbers before or after my name of any kind. I have research, I have my personal experience, and I have other people that I've learned from, and people who do have those credentials before and after their names and decades of research, and I listen to them and how they use these things. So that is what I'm going off of as we were talking. So there's different versions of this study of, but I just called it, more good than bad. So there's a gym one as well, but I wanted to talk about this one that was based on 4 days, right? It's a study based on 1 week, 7 days, right? So within 7 days of how we do of a regular work week, we we will be doing if we have 3 days and 4 days, if you 4 days is four is more than three. So if we put in 4 days worth of good things and we only do the 3 days of bad things, if you will, or what our normal routine of life is, then if we put in more good than bad, then more good things will come of it, right? It's a very simple, basic, more good than bad analogy. So this study was done on Christians who are engaged in scripture most days of the week, and they had lower odds of participating in bad behaviors of these sorts of getting drunk, sex outside of marriage, porn, gambling. So these are just a few of the stats that they had mentioned in this study. So whenever you're looking at the numbers on these types of studies of 3 versus 4 days, it shows that on days one, two, and three, pretty much nothing changes. But immediately, as soon as you hit day four, it jacks up. It just skyrockets. So it's not a gradual one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. It is one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. It just skyrockets like crazy. And the idea behind it is just the fact that it's as simple as more good than bad. You're putting in more time and effort into doing something that is good for you. So if you're in the Word, and the Word is truth and life and love, right? So if you're doing that, then you are getting rid of more of those bad things. So if you're used to getting drunk and because you don't read and you try to read for 1, 2, or 3 days, it's not going to have this anywhere near the same effects, little to none, as if you were to do it for 4 days. The difference between 3 days and 4 days is dramatic, much less if you were to do five, six, or seven. So again, all these different things. Getting drunk went down 57%, porn down 61%, and stuff like that. So on the flip side is on the same study, when people would read or they listen to the Bible, right? Everything is going to be an audio book and there's always going to be someone reading. So you could read or listen to the Bible yourself. And in the same, 3, 4 day study or over a week of the difference between 3 and 4 days, the odds participating in the bad behaviors, they had gone down in the last one, but participating in good behaviors, they dramatically went up. So when people were in the Bible more and they actually just read it for themselves, they're like, oh my God, look at this. There's this information. I never knew about this because I never read it. No one told me. My preacher never told me this basic piece of information. And that's because, you're not supposed to know the information for them. You're supposed to know it for yourself. So, um, applying that and going about your life and the fact that now you know it for yourself, you don't have to wait for someone to tell you the answer. You can find the answer yourself. So the sharing of their faith went up, over 200%, discipling others and going, hey, friend, I know that, we've been having the same type of issue and I came across this information. Maybe this will help you too because it's been helping me so far. And now that goes up over 200%. Memorizing the scripture. We memorize movie quotes and music lyrics, people memorize songs, back and forth like crazy. And so you can memorize anything. It's just what you prioritize and what you want to memorize. So you can memorize scripture, even as simple as a verse. A verse is normally about a sentence long. So that went up over 400%. So when we look at the fact that science is showing that when we are doing something and we're doing something good, and the difference between 3 and 4 days, that's something that we can learn and apply in our life now because we can say, well, I read the Bible after church or before church, once a week. I was like, oh, well, I didn't get anything. Nothing happened. Well, now I tried it, twice a week or 3 times a week. It's like nothing changed. But then once you hit that 4 day, much less five, 6, or 7, then and that's over weeks and months of doing it. So it's not like, so don't expect to in 1 week, all your problems to be solved or go away. It's not how it's going to work, but you will absolutely see a lot more of the problems that you've had and you'll be able to overcome those much, much easier. But again, pro- it's all progression. So I don't want to go too crazy into these different types of books. They're a great read, especially the compound effect on how you can apply what we're about to talk about into your life overall. But this book called Ordinary Men is a reserve police battalion back during the Holocaust. And I'm not going through the whole book or going into a whole psychological analyzation of the people and whatnot. Just in short, the book talks about these types of principles that they're micro decisions. They're the teeny tiny micro steps, like so small that you would never be able to tell the difference if you were looking at it, just from a broad view. You'd have to like look at it so deep and so like zoomed in that you'd have to say, all right, I can see that this has shifted just the smallest amount. So the book talks about everyday guys who were in the reserve police battalion. These guys were like some were injured and middle-aged and stuff like that. And they had gone from being everyday Joes. They weren't like war criminals. They weren't massacres. They were just a regular guy who was there to, as a reserve police battalion. And so, in short, they went from being everyday Joe into being trained and forced to have uh, to to end up getting to the point of shooting women and children that were naked in a field and going to bury them. They got to that point of everyday guys into creating mass murders, horrible things that will absolutely destroy a person from the inside. So, and just in short, it talks about the progression of how you go from the smallest thing of you being a good person, genuine, you just being you, and how the smallest, teeniest, tiniest, microscopic steps and things that change and the things that you allow to take place and become more normalized, then you build on that linear progression and then you can do horrendous things. Now it can be done for good and it can be done for evil. In this instance, we're talking about the bad, evil version because it's a concept called incrementalization, right? Incremental steps, teeny tiny, that line in the sand. Whenever you sit there and you might have that situation or problem with someone and you have that boundary, you have that line in the sand and you say, here is the line. Now, if you don't stick with that line and something happens and they go over it even the slightest little bit, if you push your line to where they passed, then that's all they need to do because eventually they will keep pushing it a little bit more. But then you're gonna be like, no, I told you, don't do it. And it's like, and then they'll always come with an excuse or something. And then that will continue to grow until, your line was back here, but now you're all the way, you can't even see it anymore. You're miles away. You can't see where your line was. And that's the exact same thing of having a boundary, having a set line. This is what is set. This is what we're doing. This is how I'm going about things. You're not changing. You're not going to be moving up. Because if you do, then that's how you can linearly, you will progress into doing things either, really good or in most instances, we're talking about how they are really bad. So the more you become, the more exposure you get, it desensitizes you to what that negative bad thing is that you've been exposed to. So if you're in a normal neighborhood and you're not used to crime being committed, drug deals or murders or drive-bys or something, if you're not used to that and it happens, you're gonna get freaked out when it happens. Now, if that happens on a regular basis, or if every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. you know that someone's going to be doing a drug deal down the road and you see it, now because it's happened so much, you become desensitized to it. And it's like, I already expected that. Even if it's bad, I already expected that. So now I look at it as being less severe than what the thing is. So in the book, The Compound Effect, it's a great read and it will really help you to understand this thought process and how you can apply this to your life. But compound is not just, it's got this little formula in there that they have small, and then small, smart choices and consistency and over time. And that will make a radical difference. Because as you apply these new little concepts that you learn and apply in your life, they will compound on each other and they will grow and build. It's a snowball effect. You can make a little snowball, and if you roll it down a really big hill and the snow is really sticky, you're going to end up having a giant monster of a ball that gets all the way down to the end. And that's how it goes about. So it compounds and it builds on itself. And it goes from a tiny little thing into this ginormous thing that you don't know what to do with, good or bad. But anyways, so that's a great read, and that's just what I want to talk about is how the smallest, teeniest, tiniest choices that you can make in life can lead to dramatic, huge, big changes down the road. But you got to start today. It's a ripple effect. One little ripple from a pebble hitting the water can go into being as big as a tsunami miles or hundreds of miles or thousands of miles away. It's that concept. So the prefrontal cortex. The only main thing I really want to say about this, again, I'm not a biologist, botanist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert in any of this stuff. But the very simple thing that I want to talk about with the prefrontal cortex in the front, that big region of the brain, it is the decision maker. In short, so since it makes the decisions, but it does not mature until you are 25 years old, right around there for the vast majority, it doesn't mature till then. Obviously, we can make decisions when we're young and little kids and we're teenagers and we do stuff and we normally do dumb stuff, especially when we're teenagers. But that's because that region of the brain has not fully developed to understand the actions behind what we have taken and the consequences behind those actions. So just wanted to mention about this region of the brain that, hey, I know that you are not doing, or that whenever you make a choice and you just don't understand what's going on, you don't know why you make a choice, that's okay because you're biologically not even fully developed yet. Your brain has not fully developed. And I know it's the difference with myself. Whenever I turned 25, I don't even know what it was. I just felt something in my biology change. And I was like, things make more sense now. For whatever reason, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was because of this. I don't know if it was right around the same time of being saved and God opening my eyes to things. I don't know what it was, but it was around when I turned 25 that this did change for me. So another region of the brain is called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. So again, don't want to go crazy deep into this, but what I do want to talk about is the fact that when you let this region of the brain, it is like elastic. You can work on it and grow it and build it, and it will stretch and it will become bigger. Versely, just like if you were to pull it and elastic, and it stretches and it gets bigger, if you don't stretch it and you let it go, it will shrink back down. So the very definition of, use it or lose it, and it will go away. If you do not work on it, if you do not keep working towards it and keep working on it, then it will go away. Every single day, it's something to work on in every area of your life. So this region of the brain, it is smaller in people who are obese, who are lazy, who don't exercise, who, watch porn, who sit in front of the TVs and screens and phones, and they don't push themselves, they don't challenge themselves. They are very, very, very weak, very feminized, very very much not doing anything with their life, physically or mentally or spiritually, emotionally, nothing. And smaller in them because the very aspect that the reason that they are in these spots, that they are that they are depressed, that they are, they don't work out, that they are, watching porn, that they are always on their phone, is because that they are not pushing themselves and they are not pushing that region of their brain to get bigger, to challenge themselves, for themselves to overcome that challenge, and then they can kind of put that victory on their tool belt of, I overcame this thing. I can apply that to some other area of my life. I can learn from me overcoming this obstacle, and I can learn that I had to rechange the way I thought about this process and how I went about it, and I can apply that same thing to a future challenge that is harder. So again, I just want to hit this very specific area, nice and brief, but pointing out the fact that there is this region of the brain. Biologically, we have this region of our brain, and it is there that you can use it or you cannot. If you want to use it, you're going to go through, some pain, trial, suffering. You're going to push yourself. It's going to be hard, absolutely, and it's meant to. Your life is supposed to be rough, but that's why you enjoy the good times even more. You're not always supposed to be in this constant state of dopamine hits, even though I know that's what we're told we're supposed to do. But also, when you're switching, especially when you aren't used to doing these things like pushing yourself, going to the gym, cold plunging, doing things to challenge yourself, it is over 10 times harder. It's like 10.2 times harder to go from this negative thing that you were so used to going into the positive version. So it's much harder. And that is my viewpoint and my interpretation of it is that that is the flesh. That is the flesh that is saying, I just want to sit here and, I just want to order food and watch porn and play on my phone all day. And I don't want to get up and go to the gym. I don't want to go be in a cold plunge and overcome that discomfort. I don't want to go eat that healthy food and make it myself when I can just order it on whatever those, wherever you order food on your phone these days. Uh, they don't want to take that challenge on. So that is like that is in my belief that the flesh that we just do not want to give up because especially in the past several decades, especially since technology's become so normalized, and my generation who grew up in the technology industry, that's all they were given. They just were on phones, they were on their TVs. All they got was this constant bit of addiction and normality of ease. And they did not struggle to get that thing that they wanted. They didn't have to go to the store to get the food, to go cook a meal, to eat. They just pressed a button and hit order on their phone. And you come very far away from who you were meant to be and learning a lot of things about yourself when you go about things in that simplistic and easy of a way. And especially when you do that on a regular basis. So, anyways, that's just what I want to talk about here. Self-belief. Your strongest weapon is not a blade, it is not a gun, it is not an explosive. It is your self-belief. That is your strongest weapon, is you telling yourself that you can believe it. Because those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. So if you're not willing to accept that there is something more, that you are capable of something more, and you're not going to be there in the moment, right? You're not going to go to the gym one day and go from being like about 120 pounds, soaking wet, skinny, weak, and, can't do anything. And you're going to go in a day or even a year later and and go look like The Rock. Like that's not how it works. But if you can tell yourself, I can get to that point someday, I can work to getting there. I can work on myself and I can learn how to protect myself. I can learn hand-to-hand combat after years and years of training. I can become more physically capable and competent with myself because I can go spend years in the gym and get to a point of more competency and confidence in myself because of me actually doing the work and putting in the work and a very long time of me doing it. And it's a constant. I go to the gym, I get better, I push myself, I get a little bit better, and I start it over again the next day, the next week. I'm going to push myself even harder, a little bit harder, a little bit harder. So believing in yourself that you are even capable, just believe that you are capable and you have already far, far you're much further ahead than so many others. Because again, no one's going to believe that they can't. Everyone who's going to sit there, they're going to be like, I'm 3, 4, 500 pounds. I'm fat. I can't move. I just don't leave my bed. Whatever the case is, I'm just fat and useless. I hate myself. Whatever the case is. In that instance, yes, you are. So believe in yourself to go change, and then you can overcome that. Because who you are in the moment is only because you've allowed yourself to get to that point because of your lack of self-belief of something more. So if you believe that you are capable of something else, go look at any other person that has lost hundreds and hundreds of pounds or who has become completely different than who they were. That's what you get from all these different types of people, like David Goggins or again, The Rock, Arnold Schwarzenegger. You just hear people's stories where they started, where they came from, and they believed in themselves that they could get somewhere, and they did. And again, it took time. But again, you're going to start at the bottom, and that's going to even be your believing in yourself and your self-love, your self-acceptance, your whatever the case is that you're at. You're going to believe that you're down at the bottom. You're going to be like, I just suck. I hate everything about me. Fine. You're gonna. Now, what can you do to change that? Take those actions every day and climb up another step. And eventually, after weeks and months and years, you're going to see yourself. Man, I've read, I could have, been on my phone all day, every day, but I end up reading a whole book this week. Man, I could have, just sat and watched TV and I could have binge watched that entire Netflix series. But I end up going to the gym every day this week, and man, I feel phenomenal. I could have just eaten all that crappy food and just ordered it, but I watched some YouTube videos and I learned how to cook a little bit, and I feel much better. The fact that I taught myself how to do something that I didn't know how to do before, and it's a very gradual progression, but it builds. So there is a study that was done by the American Society of Training and Development back in 2010. And what they had discovered, or at least from some of the stuff that they did, is that when you are when you're dealing with accountability, right? And accountability is a really rough one for people because it's hard to go from this, being at the bottom of, how you feel about yourself to trying to climb and to trying to feel better and to trying to get to the top, whatever that top is for you. Whether that's just, overcoming yourself or your flesh or reaching some kind of a goal that you hit, right? So when people would when they had a goal that they wanted to achieve and they told someone about it, they were 65% more likely to actually complete that goal and to get there. Now, if they had a specific point of time where they had someone that was going to, hey man, at Tuesday at noon, I'm going to check in on you and I'm going to see, did you finish that book over the weekend? Did you end up going to the gym at all? Did you, whatever the case is? And whenever they had a specific set time that they knew that they were going to be checked on, they were 95% more likely to do the thing because they did not want to let that person down. They did not want to let themselves down and be, not a man of their word. Because you can be a man of your word and not say anything. And then you're like, well, I'm a man of my word because I didn't say I'd do anything, so I didn't do anything. So I didn't, I'm not less than I didn't go against my word because I didn't say anything. But if you to give your word, yeah, I'm gonna do this X thing. I'm gonna finish that project. I'm gonna research that, whatever it is. Now you've given your word, and now you're like, man, I can't. I'm not gonna be a liar, so I need to go put in the work. Now you're kind of, you have a fire lit under you to actually push yourself. So having accountability, especially someone who is doing the thing that you are wanting, that's a really good individual to have in your corner to help you out. So another study that was done, which is, there's that saying that goes, you're the sum of the five most people you spend your time with. And here's a study that backs that up. So by through 11 companies over 58,000 hours, they had done this study where if you were within like 25 feet of a high performer, then your own performance went up about 15%. So you made 100,000, now you made 150,000, 15,000 the next year. But if you were, 25 feet within the low performer, so someone who's giving off those negative vibes, those not doing their job, they're not trying, they're not performing, then the performance dropped by 30%. So now you were making 100,000, now you're making a lot less. Now you're not making that six figures. So now you're like, well, now I'm only making 70 grand because this guy over here is just being lazy. He's in the bathroom for 2 hours of the day. He's on his phone. He's not making calls. Well, if he's not doing it, then neither do I. And you allow that negativity to overcome you. And and so when we're thinking about that, who we spend our time with is exactly what we will become, right? Our product of our environment. So in either situation, whenever they took out either the high performer or the low performer, eventually things went back to normal because people just went about whoever they were, their own self-belief, right? So wherever they were just doing their job, just living their life. Someone was better, they're like, you know what, maybe I can do better. Yeah, actually, I believe in myself more. Someone comes in who's negative and down, it's like, well, they're not doing anything and they got the job, so I don't care to do anything. So things will go back, people will go back to who they are and who they believe they are. And it was who you were around. And again, if you notice that the low performer was twice as impactful as the positive. not because bad's better than good, but because but because it's so much easier to give into the negative, to give into the flesh, to give into the weakness. It's so much easier to go into all that whenever, it's again, someone is you don't have a good example in front of you. Because again, everyone's always looking to someone else to where's I need to get my motivation. I need to find that other person to be that thing that I need to look up to, that, I need to apply myself to what that person is doing. I need to be like that. They're not working on themselves like how can I be better than me? That's what we need to do is how can I be better than where I am today? What am I doing today? And what is something that I could do in any area, in one category? Just focus on one. What is one thing in my life that I could change to make myself better tomorrow? So, anyways, whenever you're doing this, it's the term called spillover. Is that whenever more good is done or more bad is done, it spills over. So whatever that top performer is doing, that's hey, I'm doing so good. Here, here's extra good vibes. Let's just use good vibes, frequencies, belief, self-confidence, however you want to, whatever terminology you want to use. But it'll be more good, it'll be spillover. And if it's negative, then they'll just have a lot less and they'll, bleed out a lot less of anything good. They're going to be bleeding out the negativity that you don't want. But you'll still be in that sphere of influence and it will have an influence over you, especially if you are not very structured in who you are and you do not have that set belief in who you are and what your capabilities are. So anyways, just wanted to talk about, again, science study that was talking about who you are is what matters, or who you're around is what matters and what will determine who you become. You can't be around junkies and druggies uh, and people who are just wasting their life and not doing anything with it. You cannot be around that kind of group, much less on a regular basis, and be a high performer. You can't. You're not going to. And there's this interesting con concept, and I guess this goes back to the idea in my interpretation is of the flesh versus the spirit, right? So because we avoid pain even more than we will chase growth. And growth, as we've talked about, growth, achievement, success, self-development, self-improvement, self-belief, it all comes through pain, suffering, overcoming yourself, overcoming those obstacles and things of that nature. So we're always chasing the pleasure because we've got, especially in today's world, in the past several decades, we've become so normalized and so desensitized to overcoming the bad stuff and to not putting in more of the good stuff of us. So like we were talking about before, you just order food online and it's nothing but a press of a button versus you going to the store to get some raw ingredients and going home and cutting up some peppers and putting them in your eggs and having some bacon and you made that yourself and you get more pride from the fact that you did it instead of just hitting a button. So it's easy to get those dopamine hits. It's easy to just, not have to work on yourself and not build yourself up for years and years, by the way, for many years, to build yourself up and to challenge and test and try yourself and developing yourself into who someone you want to become and much less want to get married to. And it's so much easier to just go onto a porn site and watch something like that. And you're like, well, I can get the same satisfaction for a whole lot less work. And kind of true. Like, sure, the job can get done, but at what cost? So how it is that we are going about what we do, if we are not chasing the growth, and because we are so scared of that pain, pain, discomfort, if we're so afraid of that, then absolutely you're not going to get anywhere in life because you can't get anywhere because nothing can grow without an opposing force pushing against it. That's exactly by definition how it grows. It has to have something that pushes against it. I've used the analogy of going to the gym. You're not going to go do curls and with a 20 and get like 10 this year, and then you're only going to get the same next year if you do little to no work. But if you do the work and you put in the reps, literally, then that same 20 pounds that you can only do 10 reps with, now you can do 20 and 30 the next year because now you've pushed yourself, not because the weight got lighter, but because you got stronger, because you got better, because you learned more, because you did the things that need to be done, because you went through the sacrifice, the discomfort. You went through the pain. So whether it's drugs, social media, alcohol, whatever type of drug you want or believe in the world, whether it's whatever you're chasing, it if it's a bad thing, then you're going to keep chasing that bad thing to get that little hit of something good. Versus if you chase the thing that you don't want or you don't think you want, the how we talked before about, going in the dark, facing what's in the dark, your deepest fear. That is what you most want is to overcome that which you most fear. So here's the red car theory. If you ever heard of it. How often are you driving down the road and you are looking for a red car? Probably no one is ever wanting to look at a red car or look for a red car. It's the same thing as opportunities. How often do you look for opportunities in your everyday life? Because if I were to give you $100 for every red car you saw when you were driving out, would you probably go spend more of your time driving and even go out of your way to just not just drive and keep your eyes open when you are driving out and about, but you'll probably take that time and say, I'm going to go and drive all day. You will be in the car all day and just go drive back and forth and around in circles as much as you can, right? If you were given that opportunity for $100 for every car, you're going to look for them. So that's what opportunities are like. Opportunities are everywhere, and until you are willing to look for them, you're not going to see them. Because as the Bible says, it says, seek and you will find, right? So look for opportunities. The red car theory is, in this instance, opportunities. Look for opportunities everywhere you go because they're always there. I know I've been blind to not see them. And then now that when I came across this type of analogy and thought process, I was like, that's interesting. So then I started looking out and about everywhere I went. Every conversation I was in, every place I went to, everything I was a part of, every job I did, every bit of everything, I was always looking at what is an opportunity in here that I can do something good, that I can do something beneficial, that I can get somewhere further in life, that I can make more money, that I can put in more work, that I can learn a piece of information, that I can something. So that's what I want to talk about here is opportunities are out there. They are everywhere. And the more you look for them, the more you will find them. So we have our five senses, right? Smell, taste, touch, etc., etc. We as human beings, we will spend or we will use upwards of about 90% of our visual, so just our eyes, what we see, about 90% of all the information that we interpret in life comes through what we see. So one, visual, seeing. That one sense, we interpret about 90% of everything that we believe and understand. All the information that goes inside of up here is through what we see. The other force is about 10%. So it's only a couple percent each. So when we think of it in that, what we see is what we believe. So what are we seeing and what are we believing? And if we are not believing, or if we don't like what we believe, then we need to change what we see. So if all you are is in front of whatever it is, TV or, bad influences of friends or out drinking and partying or something, change what you see, change your environment, change who you're around. And when you start to see progress, you go to the gym for 100 days. Let's just use 100 days for an example. You're not going to change anything if you go, I don't care if you go for 5 minutes or 5 hours in one day. You will not change anything except for how bad you feel and if you mess yourself up. So if you go for one day, nothing's going to change. You're not going to see anything. 2, 3, 5, 10. But you go for 100 days to the gym in a row and you do things in the right way of going to sleep, eating right, drinking water, getting that rest, and going to the gym. You do the things that it takes. You will see progress within 100 days. You will see something, whether that's just the fact that I can lift more or I can see, more definition. I can see something. When you see it, then then you think, well, I can see that. Man, that's interesting. Maybe I can do more, and then I'll see more, and more will happen from it. So what you see is what you believe. So change what you see if you want to change what you believe. And again, I mentioned a while back that we'd be going through porn again. And it's because of the fact that it's just so prevalent. It's because every guy's biggest, absolute number one biggest problem in life has always been lust. It has been, and now specifically is in porn. So as deep and as long as I could go down this rabbit hole, I'm not going to go forever down it, but I'm going to hit on some things that are horrifying, that are that that they're just it's just a horrible thing to know about it and what it does to you, and things that most probably don't know because again they just don't know. So first off, everything about it is fake. It makes you into a weak person. You don't know how to control yourself. You can't control yourself when you're like, I have an urge. I'm going to go, go on my phone, go in my room, open up my laptop or something. You're going to give into that kind of physical, basic urge. Everyone's got it. Now, whether you have the self-control to say no to it or you give into it, and that's being weak, of course, because you don't have that self-control and you don't have that discipline, you will take that same type of weakness and apply it in other areas. And that can build and go into so many different areas. The more porn that people watch has shown to go into making people more aggressive and criminal behavior because of, again, there's so much that can go down this. Again, these are so many rabbit holes of so many different areas, but just in short, you become more physically aggressive because the more you're used to not having control of yourself, the more willing and prevalent you are to having less control of yourself in other situations. About 1 in 5 searches are of porn on social media or on mobile devices. Nearly a third, about 30% decrease in the commitment of a lower relationship quality. So if you're in a relationship and you're watching porn because whatever problems that you have that you haven't dealt with, that is going to dramatically reduce and mess up your relationship. And it's going to come in the way of things. Because again, you are cheating on whoever you're with. You're cheating on your wife, girlfriend, whoever it is. You will be cheating on her, and that is a form of cheating. Whether you want to accept it or believe it or not, that's irrelevant because it is. And otherwise, you wouldn't be hiding it. So the striatum, I think it is. So that region of the brain, just again, a very short, brief thing, is that area of the brain is what makes up the reward system. And it gets smaller the more you watch porn and the more you're like pushing into wanting that thing, it will get smaller, which means you're gonna want more of it to get the same reward that you got. So the first time you watch it versus after 10 or 100 or 1,000 times of watching it, you're going to be pushing into it more and wanting to watch more of it to get the same bit of reward, fulfillment from it as if, as if from something else, because it's going to desensitize you. Like we've been talking about other things. The more you're subjected to something, exposure incentivizes or creates desensitization. So, and I know this from personal experience because after years and years of me watching this stuff, I know that these things are all actually 100% factual because these are all some of the many things that happened to me. Uh, again, it's like any other drug. It just drives your brain into wanting more of it if you aren't willing to give up that negative thing. It causes different types of problems like erectile dysfunction. Uh, whenever you watch it, much less on a regular basis. Like I was watching it several times a day for years and just more and more and more and longer periods. And so it built on itself and it makes you feel lonelier. It makes you feel more insecure, dissatisfied with appearance, both with yours and with women's, because then after you watch it and you are watching all this fake, absolute fake shit online, and it messes you up so much, and you allow that to become more of your normal, and you go, well, when I'm looking for a woman, she doesn't have that, she doesn't have that, she doesn't have any of these fake things that is what social media and Hollywood and the world is telling you that this is what's real, and it's not. So it just pulls you away from the reality of what you're looking for in a mate in the future. So in short, there's nothing that's good with porn. It is going to mess you up. It creates, it doubles the amount of married couples. The divorce rate will double at least. So there's not a single thing that is good when it comes to the aspect of porn. Not a single pro. The con is absolutely everything physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, everything about you. It is all worse the further you go down and into more worse, darker aspects of what porn does in this world and where it comes from. You know how you feel afterwards, right? It's not how you feel in the moment, but you know how you feel afterwards. You're going to feel more depressed, ashamed, have more self-hatred, lack of self-esteem, lack of self-worth. You're going to feel much worse in many different ways about yourself because you give into this thing and you're like, why can I not say no to this thing? And it sucks, and it really does, and it can take many years to overcome that and to understand and learn from it, learn yourself and to develop yourself into becoming more than who you can. Because here's the thing, like I've said before, and I'm very straightforward and a dickhead about, is I'm going to tell you that is not an attractive trait to any woman, is that when you do not have self-control, it is not attractive. If you have self-control, much more attractive. So if you are giving in to the simplest little urge, what do you think someone else can do to you? You're going to be much more prevalent to cheat. You're going to be much more easily susceptible to anything any woman says because all she has to do is just like, wave a little piece of meat in front of you and you're going to do whatever you want. You're going to act like a stray dog that hasn't eaten for a week, but it's got a steak in front of it. So you lose your own value, self-worth. It diminishes, and then you feel that. You feel being so teeny tiny that you're like, I'm just absolutely weak and pathetic and I hate myself. And you feel that way and you think that way. It leads to so many problems in many different areas. Dostoevsky said the best way to keep a prisoner from escaping is to make sure he never knows he's in prison. And that's how absolutely we're in prison in so many different forms today, and our prison is our addictions. You can have more than one, obviously. You can have a lot, and most have a lot. They have porn, alcohol, drugs, partying. They'll just do anything and everything that they can to release, to let go from the reality of the world. And I mean, again, I've been that too. I've done all those things as well. And they never got me anywhere. It was just, how am I going to get through the day until I can go drink another bottle and black out and forget, and then wake up with a hangover just to deal with that. So it's always trying to run from the problem and never face it. And facing it sucks and it's scary. But here's a absolutely horrible aspect that I hate talking about or even know, and I hate the fact that I know it, but in porn, a lot of the videos are not just, it's not consensual. So women are being raped, and a lot of it is from sex trafficking and also underage child sex trafficking as well. And that is in videos, and that is very legalized on many porn sites. And I can think back to, the crap I'd watched, the other people I've talked to whenever they spent years watching and doing that and being a part of that industry, and how they would watch more worse things because it desensitized you to the feeling of what you were going for. You get so used to that crap, and it just made you so much less than, and it just took part of your soul away because you allowed it to come in and to overcome you and to have a bigger place of watching this video than to actually believe and do something for yourself and to believe in something bigger, and you just give into this little video. And so there's so much of that that's in the world, and more than I'm not even going to go down the rabbit hole. But in short, there's a lot of that in there. And their chances are very good that you've watched that kind of stuff and you thought it was normal, but it's not. And it's not good. And that's another one of the many problems that we got to fight with. So you giving in and watching the porn is actually only helping people, Satan, all of his little minion evil things that are overcoming evil people or coming into people and allowing them to become evil. And then we get only more and worse evil things in the world. And that's actually how some of the many uh, predators, child predators that are out there, they started with porn, and after so long of doing so much, they got so desensitized to everything that was out there that they had to change out what it was. And that's how they go from being a normal person, again, incrementalization and desensitization, from being an average Joe who just wanted to watch something to feel better, and then now they become predators, to say the least. So like anything else in life, it can be a domino effect. It can be good or bad. So good is, one little thing happens. Okay, cool. I'm gonna, keep working with that momentum, that motivation. Good things are happening. Awesome. You do it in the wrong way. You allow the bad thing that happened to you. And I use this example because this was my example of how I was about, what was I, 2.5 years ago? Little, maybe just over 2.5 years ago or so. This was a bit of my progression. And again, this is how many others it goes about. A certain thing happens to you, whatever that case is, whatever the bad thing is, you know, abuse, physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually abused, hated on, cheated on, lied to, hurt in whatever way. And we allow that X bad thing that happens to us. So then we start to think bad. It's like, well, that bad thing happened. So now all you do is dwell on that bad thing. You thought, and then you think about that for a long enough time, then you start to believe that you're a bad person because that bad thing happened to you and it's a bad thing, and that's all you think about. So now you're like, well, no, I must be a bad person because that thing happened. Then you go into believing that you deserve that bad thing because of the fact that it happened and that you think about it and it's a bad thing. And you're like, well, it happened to me, so it must mean I'm a bad person. So now you believe and accept, oh, well, I'm a bad person then. Well, then we don't inherently like bad things, so we kind of hate them. So then you kind of start to hate yourself because you believe that that since that bad thing happened to you, it's because you're a bad person and you shouldn't be alive. So now you hate yourself. Now that you hate yourself and you believe all that happened, now you start to hurt yourself in many different forms. That can be the partying, drinking. That can be the self, um, the cutting yourself, the whatever type of thing that you do. The just your thoughts. That's all different forms of poisoning and hurting yourself. And eventually, after you've done that enough, you can easily go down to the secondhand suicide route. So, for those who don't know what that is, secondhand suicide is where you just want to die. You are just like over it. You just can't take it anymore. You have suffered. All you want to do and all you think about is a way to die and to just be released from the pain. And so that's a very slippery slope right there once you hit that stage because now that you're intentionally thinking of ways of hurting yourself and killing yourself, but then second to the second hand, it's I want that thing, but there are people I love, or there's people I don't want to hurt, or there's a thing or a person that is going to keep you from doing it. So you'll just live in this constant state of self-hatred and self-harm and wanting to die. So then you hit that very, very critical area of now that you're thinking of these secondhand suicide things, that is suicidal thoughts and tendencies, you'll lead to that area. And that can just be putting yourself in that situation. That can be the speeding, uh, going really fast on a curve, driving really fast in the rain, the closing your eyes, falling asleep. When you drive, it can be any number of things. And then that is where people can just do it and believe in that so much that eventually they can and will kill themselves because 4 times the amount of guys kill themselves than women. And I can say that I was very close to this myself because about 2.5 years ago, I was at that point that I had a gun in my head and I was so wanting to pull the trigger about like, I got this family over here, I'm not gonna mess them up. I'm not gonna, traumatize them from this situation kind of thing. So I just continued to go about my everyday. And at that point, I was like, all right, God, I'm gonna make that deal with you, and you know, here it is. I'm gonna put in the work until this amount at this time, and if you don't do anything, then I'll find another way to do it. Granted, he came through, obviously, but there's a very slippery slope of whenever even just when something bad happens to what we can create and allow that to become in our mind. Do not let a bad thing that happened, I don't care how bad it is, I don't care how bad it is, no matter what it is, do not let that thing lie to you and to tell you that you are anything less. Because you can become much more. You got to put in the work, and it's going to suck, but it's a whole lot better than the alternative. So in psychology, there's a couple of things. One is called the Diderot effect. Now, it's this concept of when you buy one item of superior quality, then you feel like the rest of everything needs an upgrade. It needs to be upgraded to match it. So if you're going to school and you're like, oh, I need a new notebook or I need a new pencil case or something, and it's like, well, now I need new binders to match this new one. Oh, now I need a new backpack to match all that stuff. Well, now I need a new outfits to match this and belt. And you keep going, well, I changed this one thing and it's so much better that everything else looks like it's less than. I need to bring the rest of my stuff up. So you can apply that same concept in your life that when you change again, like I mentioned before, if you can take all of your attention and focus and apply it to at least and just do it to one thing, whether that is to read your Bible, make that your priority to just read, whether it's a verse, a chapter, the book, whatever the case is, read as little as one verse and make that be your priority for the day. And if that's the only thing you do, that's the only thing you change, or if you go into the gym for 30 minutes is the only thing you change, or if you changing one part of your diet is the only thing you change something. And if you think that it's too hard, it's not. Change one thing, just one simple thing for the positive, for the better. Do that, and then eventually after time, you're going to see that one thing build up, and you're going to be like, well, now I'm going to the gym. Now I feel now I'm doing much better, but I still feel like crap. Now I need to change that diet. Or you go and you start reading the Bible and be like, this stuff makes more sense. Now I need to stop, like we talked in the beginning. Well, now that I'm reading the Bible more, now it talks about not getting drunk. It says not to get drunk, not to be, all messed up in that way. Okay, so now I need to stop drinking. It says not to be, it talks about not having sex outside marriage. It talks about sexual, promiscuity. It talks about uh, sexual things to not be. And I'm being those things. So let me stop being those things. Let me start doing this. Let me start doing that. And you start to add that to your life. So I just want to talk about that in the sense of when you did a real effect, when you change one area of your life for the better, you feel the need to, and especially if you maintain it, then you feel the need to up and to upgrade the rest of of those areas of your life to something better. So another psychological concept is called the mirror exposure effect. So, psychological phenomenon by which people tend to develop a preference for things or people that are more familiar to them than others. So, in short, it's the normality. You are more used to your friend group. You're more used to the TV show or movie genre you like to go to, or whatever your favorite uh, food is or something. It's like, I don't know what to get. Well, I'm going to get that flavor of ice cream because that's my favorite. So, I'm just going to get what I know. So, when we become normalized to stuff, what are we becoming normalized to? And if it's not something good, how can we change it? Not can we, but how can we change that? Because again, familiar things are a comfort to us all. So how can we change what we are used to, what we are comfortable with, and how can we change that to something better that is going to be it's going to be better for us in the long run, right? Physically, mentally, spiritually. In what way can we change this one thing and start with one thing? And how can we allow that thing to become more normalized? How can we normalize this better, healthier version? And social normalization of deviance, that is the idea of when you are in a when things become more normal, right? As we're talking about, when things become more normal, you become more used to that thing. So as the example I gave earlier of, so if you're in a bad neighborhood, or if you're in a regular living in a regular neighborhood, uh, if you're living in a nicer part and you're used to safe, secure, you don't have to worry about people doing drugs, stealing, any kind of anything in your area, then you're used to that. Now, versely, if you are in a bad neighborhood and you have drug deals, you have shootings, you have, some kind of crime or some bad stuff that happens, on a regular basis, and you become so used to that, well, now you're used to it. Now you're normalized. But if you were to have, if you were to take that same crime to that other good neighborhood, then people would be all up in arms and they'd be like, what's going on? We got to deal with this problem. But if that was to be a more normal thing there, then eventually it would become normal. And then they would become so used to the fact that there's going to be a drug deal Tuesday night at 8. They know that someone's going to end up doing a drive-by at that place down the road because turf wars or something. It's just the idea that things will become more normal as it becomes more prevalent and it's more often. we allow it to become more normal. So, what can you change in your life that becomes more normal, that becomes a better type of normal? Can you start reading that Bible, praying with your family before dinner? What is something that you can do to change it and change it for the good? Another psychological aspect is the Dunning-Kruger effect. So it's when you think you know everything about something just because you know one piece of information, but eventually realize you don't know anything, or you really know nothing. So, as Voltaire says, the more I read and the more I acquire, the more certain I am that I know nothing. Socrates had one that was similar to that. And so the idea behind this is very simple, confidence on the y-axis, competence on the x-axis, and it's the more so you feel more confident with the less information you have. So the more you learn, the less confident you are because you realize I don't know anything. But eventually you keep going on and on and on. And then after you realize that you don't know anything, when you realize that there's so much information you'll never know it all, whenever you come to that understanding that you are not the smartest person in the room and you never really want to be, you just want to always learn. When you come to start to learn things, that slope, as you can see, it really changes and it starts to go up. So you think you know everything in the beginning, you're the hot shot, you're eventually going to come crashing down after someone corrects you and makes you look a fool. And then after enough time, you can learn and be like, oh, there's more information. There's another way of learning about this. There's something more out there that I didn't already know. So just want to talk about that you don't know it all. So where you're at and where you think you are and what you believe and understand at the moment is not everything. It's actually hardly anything because what we understand is like this much. People who actually work and try and learn and understand stuff, we might know this much. But there's so much out there. There is so much information out there and so many other ways about going about life. So understand that you just don't know you don't know everything. You probably don't know a lot. So go and learn. Go and figure out what you don't know and see how it can help you. So we're going to finish off with this last concept of logotherapy. So logotherapy in Greek is healing through meaning. So this was created by Dr. Viktor Frankl. He's a Holocaust survivor, and so he wrote this book in the concentration camps. He was in a couple different ones back and forth, and he wrote this in that time as one of the prisoners. So the idea behind logotherapy is again healing through meaning. So it's a therapeutic approach that helps people find personal meaning in life focused on the future and on our ability to endure hardship and suffering through a search for purpose. So we're suffering through a search for purpose. So there's a reason, right? Healing through the meaning. So Viktor Frankl, he had believed that humans are motivated by something called the will to meaning, and which is the desire to find meaning in life. He argued that life can have meaning even in the most miserable of circumstances, and that the motivation for living comes from finding that meaning. So, just like a, I don't know, a video game. I hate video games, but let's just use that analogy. If you're in a video game, you're starting off, you don't know everything, you don't understand how things work, and you're just playing the game trying to figure out how everything works. Eventually, you're going to learn, you're going to figure stuff out, and you can start applying it. And then you can start, overcoming whatever the obstacles, the missions, whatever the side quests are. You can start to take things on as you learn and understand more. And, you're going to probably lose. You're going to not win against the boss because you're going to realize, oh, wow, I need to do that side quest to get this piece of equipment to, protect me against the boss. And then so you lose. You lose a life, you die, and then you have to go back and start over and go finish those other things so that you can go and so you go through that suffering, that pain, so that you can learn more, do more, and then overcome that obstacle. Same thing with life. More importantly, the only thing that really matters is through the life that we have, is how can you live life, going through it, finding your will, right? What is your will? What is the meaning on why you're here? And we've talked about this before, about finding your purpose. And that's part of what he's talking about here is finding that purpose. Why are you here? Why are any of us here? What are we here to do? What do we enjoy? What makes sense? What gives us a reason to want to wake up? It's things like that. So that's what he talks about. So during this, he has these three different ideas of dereflection, paradoxical intention, and Socratic dialogue. Excuse me. So with de-reflection, it's the aim at helping you focus away from yourself and toward other people, allowing you to become whole and to spend less time feeling preoccupied with a problem or worry. So in today's society, we're always taught about thinking about this, especially in therapy and crap. We're taught to sit there and think about the problem, worry about the problem, what is the problem doing to me, whatever that problem is. So we're always sitting there thinking on this negative thing. We're not thinking about not about how can I push this problem off, how can I, not deal with it anymore, how can I drink my way to forgetting. It's not about that. It's how can I focus on something that's good and not focus and allow this negativity to overcome me? Because whatever it is, you're always gonna have to figure out and deal with the problem. But until if you don't know about it or you don't know what it is, it's gonna take time to think about it, pray on it, and figure out what that thing is that you got to deal with. So until then, you can either sit there and wallow in your, little bubble of self-hatred and confusion and hurt, or you can, your body's gonna be it's your mind's going to be thinking about whatever that is regardless. So you can focus more of your time and attention on helping others. And then that is how you help yourself. In Ephesians 4, it says, "The one who steals must no longer steal, but rather he must labor, producing with his own hands what is good, so that he will have something to share with the one who has need." So when we are able to help other people, when we're able to focus on doing the good for others and helping them with their problem, we inherently, and there's a whole lot of science and psychology that backs this up, that shows about how we feel better about ourselves, not because of, oh, I did that thing. It's like I was able to help out. I was able to do good. I was able to help that person who's lost and confused, and I feel better, and I'm more proud of myself for being able to help someone else. So being able to not focus on what you're doing in the sense that not that you forget it, but that you don't allow it to overcome you, and you go and help someone else. Paradoxical intention. It's a technique that invites you to wish for the thing that you fear most. Paradoxical in Greek is contrary opinion, which means two differing opinions collide in one statement or action. Like love your enemies, like the Bible tells us. It says love your enemies, and it's like, no, I want to kill them. I want to not. I want to unalive them. I want them to not be here. They are doing wrong. They are evil. They are something. I don't want to be with my enemies. I don't like them. I sure don't love them. Why do I need to love them? Well, because it's really hard, super hard. But paradoxical intention is the intention of going against what makes sense to us, because with all of our infinite amounts of information and knowledge, we don't understand it all. But when you're able to face that thing, we talked about this before several weeks ago when we were talking about facing your fears, and we used that Latin phrasing or that Latin saying, "In stare quinquecus invenitar." Still butchered it probably, but nonetheless, in filth it will be found. So facing the fear, the thing that we fear most, if we face it, if we walk down that dark alley, if we walk into that pitch black closet, if we face that fear, then we can overcome it. But if we don't overcome it, we don't face it, then we don't deal with it. We don't overcome it. We stay in fear of it. Remember, fear is of the enemy and is not of God. So facing what you fear, right? Whatever that thing is, that is one of his other aspects. And the last one was the Socratic dialogue. So, Socratic dialogue is a tool used to help you through the process of self-discovery by noticing and interpreting your own words. All right, let's break that down more. Socratic means Socrates. So, Socrates, who's a 5th century philosopher, 5th century BC philosopher, he has this principle of teaching by asking increasingly difficult questions, which is specifically called the Socratic method. So the Socratic induction, a lot of Socrates in here. So Socratic induction is a way of gradually arriving at generalizations through a process of questions and answers. So it's sitting there and asking them the question. It's not trying to sit there and talk to them and tell them. It's listening to them and having them think through their own problems. It's asking them that question of, you know, you have someone who's lost, confused, hurt. whatever, doesn't have anything good around them. And you got to start with something somewhere, just something. What's going on? I don't like myself. I was like, why don't you like yourself? It's like, I don't know. It's like, okay, well, what are you doing that you don't like yourself? It's like, well, I don't feel good whenever I eat. It's like, okay, what are you eating? It's like, I don't know, I just eat a bunch of junk food and sugar and I feel like crap. And it's like, okay, what do you think you could do? Okay, go through that progression of series of questions. It's like, okay, eat something different. Just try something different. Why else didn't you like yourself? Oh, it's like, well, I feel like crap and I hate the fact that I can't say no to porn because it's just always there and everyone in my family has always watched it and it's all I've known. But I hate it and it's like I can't overcome it. Okay, what do you think you can do? And it's going through this progression of questions and asking them the question, having them think about what to do because inherently we know the answer of what we need to do, at least to a degree, but then you're getting them to actually realize and understand what it is that they need to do for themselves, that they can help themselves. Because people aren't helpless. The fact that they are just incapable of anything. It's teaching them how to be capable and competent and building that confidence over time of being able to do it themselves. Again, there's a lot that needs to be worked on and healed with someone who's hurt and is dealing with something, but you're teaching them that progression of thinking through things. If you're teaching them, or you're asking them a question, now you're getting them to think about why that question was asked and what it means and what they can do to overcome it. How can they think deeper in on that question? So, anyways, that is it there with psychology stats and theories. Again, not a expert, not a psychologist or an expert on any of this stuff. It was just some things that I came across in the past couple of years of looking at and researching, and it made sense to me, and I applied it, and all these things had worked for me and helped me out, and they've been working for other people as well that I've talked to, and some of it's just science. So, anyways, any questions, any thoughts? I'd love to hear about it. Uh, hope this was good for you guys and you enjoyed it. And until next time, y'all have a very blessed day.